Hello everybody, welcome to another video of my British Chess Championships games. This is round 8. I was playing against Julia Volovich, who is another up-and-coming junior player. She still has a really underrated performance rating, or FIDE rating of about 1670 or something, but is more like a 2000 player. And she's strongest in the opening generally, but then her middle game is also pretty strong, but I seem to be able to outplay her in the ending on our previous encounter. So this match, she played d4 as white, which I had anticipated. In our previous game, I tried to surprise her out of the opening, but she had anticipated what I was going to play. This time, though, I think I may have caught her unawares, because I played a very rare line of the Mexican defense, or the Black Knights Tango. And the idea behind this is that if they play some random move like a3, you play e5, and then you're fine. d5, you then swing your knight over. e4 is a nice idea, because if black captures the pawn, then queen d4, I believe, is winning for white. Two knights are being forked. So you're actually meant to drop the knight back to g6. White can then play f4 if they choose. Knight c3 is also a move. And then black plays the e5 move, and they're planning to go bishop c5. So bishop e3, and then you can pin the knight, threaten the e-pawn, and if white protects it in some way, such as bishop d3, you can then double up white's pawns and then play d6. And this is a positional opening. White does have the bishop pair, but black has a better structure and also rapid development with castling next turn. This is the kind of thing I was anticipating. However, Julia played a move which is the most challenging move, I believe. Knight f3, stopping e5. And I was thinking about playing e5 anyway, just to gambit the pawn into a kind of Budapest style game. Possibly I could have done that, but I know it's not correct. So I play e6, knight c3, and then bishop b4. So we're going into an unusual line of the Nimzo Indian here. So queen c2 protects the knight in the way that I cannot double the pawns. And actually d6 may have been the best move for me in terms of a psychological impact on the game. But I chose to transpose back into a kind of line of the Nimzo Indian. I think on the chess.com afterwards it said it was called the Zurich variation, but I will have to check that. a3, and sometimes I've been known to play bishop e7 as a way to say to white that they've lost a tempo with a3, and so I can lose a tempo in return and keep my bishop pair. But here I chose to capture, and then when the queen takes back, keeping the pawn structure solid, I play knight e4, forcing the queen back, and quickly castle. So the plus side for black is that the knight is solid on the e4, it's fully protected. The downside is the bishop on c8 is kind of rubbish, and the knight on c6, while it has some activity, it doesn't really have a good place to go. I think it would rather be on d7. So after the surprising move e3, I was expecting bishop f4 or something else, to which I had a response. I decided now maybe the time to play f5, holding my knight with a kind of anchor on e4, so two pawns guarding it. This makes bishop d3 attacking the knight not really a threat. And also I might be able to play f4 in the near future with plans of activating the f8 rook. And also rook f6 to maybe g6 if white chooses to castle. And bishop d3 is played. I then decide upon bishop d7, trying to slide my bishop over to h5. b4 is played. White's going queenside and centre with that attack. I continue with the kingside attack that I have planned. b5 forces my knight over, so I swing it back to the kingside. a4. Now I think this move is designed with bishop a3 in mind, so the bishop on c1 can actually become active. I don't see a good way to prevent this move, so I simply put my bishop on h5, ready to trade off for the knight on f3 in some situations. And possibly bishop a3 is the strongest move, not caring about double pawns. But I think Julia does a sensible move, knight to e5. And at this stage, that knight is very strong. Her bishop a3 move next could be the final nail in my coffin, preventing my knight on e7 moving, because it would be pinned to my rook. So I take the opportunity with knight g6 to get rid of her e7 knight. And I was hoping here that she may make a slight error with bishop a3, thinking that it would gain time on my rook. But now I can take her knight, because if she takes me back, which is fairly reasonable, I think, I can play stuff like rook f7 like the game, or even rook e8 might be sensible here, and her pawn structure is not as good anymore, and if Julia were to take my rook, saying that she'd won the exchange, I can then take the bishop with a check. She would have to take back, and then after queen takes, I actually have two pieces for the rook, because I gained tempo with check. Instead, the correct move was played, knight takes g6, knight bishop takes, and an unusual question here. How would you evaluate this? Do you think it's better for white, better for black, or roughly equal in this position? So at this stage of the game, I had believed that white was a little better, maybe about half a pawn would be my guess, but possibly a touch more just because they have the bishop pair and no pawn structure weaknesses. So I knew that I was a little worse, but I thought that with a bit of good play, I could make it out of this. And her next move, bishop a3, is good. I did have a trick with f3 being played, potentially leading into trouble because of queen h4 check. If g3, I can actually play knight takes g3. The pawn is being pinned to their rook. And if the counter pin, queen f2, which will actually pin my knight to my queen, I have the saving move f4. The knight still cannot be taken. I'm on their bishop, which is for free. So the most sort of challenging move they can do is bishop takes bishop. Bishop takes bishop. And I thought here that I could take, and then when they take my pawn so that my knight is now vulnerable, it can move to f5 where it's protecting my queen. And both our pawn structures are horrible, but I actually think my knight might be better than their bishop in this situation. However, none of this came to pass. The move bishop a3 was chosen, so I put rook f7 into play. I thought this was more useful than rook e8 and rook f6, because if I play rook f6, my knight and my queen don't have access to that square. My queen also no longer can go to g5 or h4. And also, if rook e8, I thought that maybe the f-file could be useful for me if I can play f4. So f7 was the logical choice, and also it guards the c7 pawn. So there's no tactics where white can capture on d5 with their pawn and then take later with their queen, if I move my queen away. So Julia then castled, which is a very reasonable move. And at this stage of the match, unfortunately for me, I'd had lots of computer issues where I was losing connection for a few seconds, and that was making me very nervous every time that on chess.com it would tell me my internet connection was not stable. So I was very nervous of being defaulted here. I am still worse. The actual true evaluation of the position on a computer is apparently like +1.5 for white. So a lot better than I had anticipated. So actually, I guess I was in the right to offer a draw here. And I'm pretty sure that Julia would be happy with drawing to a player whose FIDE rating is about 500 points higher than her own. So she took it, which may be the right decision, as also my ending ability is probably the point at which there's the most difference between our two strengths. And if the game goes on too long, I may, and even if I'm a bit worse, I may end up beating her in the ending. But if you're purely looking at it from like computer terms, it's not correct to take the draw as white because you're, significantly better. But overall, I think both of us got what we wanted. I got the draw and didn't need to worry about being defaulted, and she got the draw against a high-rated player, so is therefore performing very well in this tournament. The final game will be tomorrow, so I will attempt to upload tomorrow night, and I believe I'm playing a WGM who's about 2300 or a little bit under, so that should be an interesting match. Thanks for watching the video and see you next time. Bye.